Hello and welcome to the Marketing Woman podcast. I'm your host, Anusha, and I'm so excited to have you here. Are you looking to move into marketing or want to learn marketing from scratch? We discuss all things marketing, analytics, business, personal branding, and much more in a way any layman can understand.
If you're new here, make sure to follow along and get on that email list by visiting anushakanan.com/email list. Follow at AnushaRK on TikTok, tag us on your stories, would love to see that. And now let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Marketing Woman podcast. I am so excited about today's episode because we have Kyra Hennessey on the show. She is one of my favorite people in marketing. I'm so excited about this episode. And this episode is going to be split into two parts. So there's part one and part two. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you're, following me on Spotify or whatever platform it is that you're listening to. I am thinking about uploading videos on YouTube. So if you want to watch the entire video, you might have to go to YouTube, subscribe, turn on that bell button, and all of the good stuff. Part one is going to be focused on customer marketing, partnership marketing, and a lot of other things in that area. And part two is going to be focused on marketing, women in marketing, because the marketing woman. And we're going to talk a little bit about the corporate world, burnout, stress, how to balance, how to have mentors, and a lot of other things that can be quite exciting. And also, I have a lot of questions in that area. So I'm going to talk about that with Kyra. I'm so excited. So let's jump into part one first, but stay tuned for part two. Hi, Kyra. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. So thank you so much, for agreeing to be on the show. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. It's been fun to watch you do this for so long. We met at that base conference in June, so it's been great to see this take off for you, and it's exciting to be here.
Thank you so much. So I thought we could do part one on using three segments. We'll first talk about customer marketing and then campaign tracking, and then we can talk about data privacy and ethics. So let's get into segment one and talk about customer marketing. With the obvious question, what is customer marketing and why is it so important for revenue generation?
Absolutely. So now finally we're seeing a lot of companies invest into customer marketing to improve their customer retention, reduce churn, boost customer loyalty, build brand advocacy, community participation. There's so many things that you can do with customers that make the brand buying experience a lot more enjoyable. So when you think of going, and I'll use buying something on Amazon, you go to buy something on Amazon and you go to check the reviews and it has 100 5-star reviews and you can see pictures and people are actually advocating for this product that you're buying. You're more likely to buy that one over something that doesn't have advocacy tied to it. So it has no reviews on it. Nobody's saying anything good. So customer advocacy is a way to build credibility and to sell your product for you by the voice of the customer. So with that, there's obviously a lot of hand-holding with the customers, a lot of lifecycle work streams that you can build in. It helps drive revenue and brand recognition. There's just a lot to it that finally brands and companies are starting to realize.
Okay. So how do we identify and select the right customers for, let's say, mutually beneficial partnership marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at many different companies doing customer marketing in many different ways. First, I was at Dell Technologies, which has such a credible brand recognition to it. And then I went to a company called Freshworks that was still in their building stage. And now I'm in a company called Redis that is known by developers, but still in the building stage of, a rebrand and building the brand recognition. In all three companies, the first thing we did every year was gap analysis. Where do we want to be? What kind of customers are we servicing right now? And what kind of customers do we want to service in the future? So then you can identify where those gaps are that will help you choose where you might need customers to advocate for you, whether it's in a specific vertical, a specific industry. You have multiple different products. You don't have advocates in this type of product segment. It will help you speak to the type of customers and the type of business that you want to target and strategically align to them.
Gotcha. So what would you say is the best practice that, someone who wants to take this role and work on this, what is the best practice that you would recommend? I mean, there are obviously a lot, but
A lot. And I was recently training my backfill for my previous role, and she was asking similar questions. What are some of your best practices? And the best thing I can say is to lead with authenticity, and to put the customer first. It's really easy to make a customer marketing strategy where every customer will fit into this specific box. And that's not necessarily true. No one customer marketing strategy will be the same because they each require different types of handholding, different types of engagement, different types of goals within the product. So the best practices for customer marketing, I think, are to just be a true friend of the customer, see what they need, see what they want to engage in, and build out a plan that's specific to them without trying to fit them into one specific box.
That makes sense. So what would you say is the worst thing that you could do?
The worst thing? Definitely reactivity. Oh gosh, it's so horrible. At my previous company, I came on and I asked one of our customers, I was on site filming for our IPO roadshow, and I was interviewing an executive at TaylorMade. And I was asking him what was working and what wasn't. And he said, gosh, Kyra, let me just tell you, I've had 15 different marketing contacts and they've all reached out for the exact same thing. And then they don't talk to me. And then they just ask me for another thing. And there's just no cohesiveness within the organization. And I think I found that to be true amongst a lot of customer marketing organizations and functions, is that people are just leading with reactivity. Oh, we need another webinar. We just need to do a million different things. We need 1,000 different customers speaking at these types of events, when you can do a lot more with less. And if you treat the customers with respect for their time, they're going to do a lot more for you. So being reactive and just trying to get a million things done isn't going to be good for the customer, and you're actually going to lose advocates in the long run. So try to, build. Yeah, it's horrible, but you have to try to build, credibility with the customer first, and then work cross-functionally within organizations. So you talk to, product marketing and sales and customer success and events and field marketing, and you see what is coming, so that when you go to the customer, you say, I can build this nice plan for you, and you can do all these things, or you could pick and choose, and we're going to be creating these types of engagements and building asset packages off of what you're talking about, instead of making them do it a million different times. They'll really appreciate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like sending multiple emails. Like in one day, sending 100 emails. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to read 100 emails.
I know, you feel annoying.
It is.
I've done it. I've reached out to a bunch of customers at once and just said, I'm really sorry. This feels really reactive. We just really need somebody. It's a fire drill. And one thing I will learn is, being in the marketing world, and my old boss used to say this to me, where we work in PR, not ER. Not everything is an emergency. Never let your customers feel like things are bad, because they'll feel it, and it will be less authentic for them to speak about your product.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think that's what I have for customer marketing. I think we can jump into campaign tracking, because I think that is one of the biggest things that I've always wondered about. Why do you think it is so important to track marketing campaigns, and what tools and technologies would you recommend as effective?
Yeah. Right now, it's so crucial to track ROI for anything you're doing. We're seeing layoffs, we're seeing budget cuts. You want to make sure that the work you're doing is actually making a difference. You're not just doing something to do it. So in terms of tracking, you can track customer marketing in so many different ways. You can track performance of the campaigns that you're doing, engagement, clicks on different assets that you're putting out to social, and then your revenue ROI. I'm bringing on this really great tool that I've used previously in another life at another company, and it's called RO Innovation. And I can actually track how much revenue attribution my assets I've created are being used in RFPs or conversations within sales and see how much it's actually influencing, which is really helpful for the sales organization. And it's really helpful for us as customer marketers to prove our worth because, we don't want to be the next round of layoffs and everybody wants to stay at the companies that they love. So being able to track the type of engagement will help you in your professional career, but also help, justify where those gaps are that I talked about earlier, which ones are performing well. One thing I can talk about is, I shot this one video and it was, a school out in Texas, and we could track how much revenue it was actually bringing in for the company and how many clicks it was getting, and it was doing really, really well. And then we didn't track how some of the other engagements were doing, and it was really hard to say, one's doing better than the other because we weren't able to track how many sales teams were utilizing these campaigns, and you're just doing something and putting it out into the world.
So you're saying there was no attribution model set in place to see where this was coming from?
Yeah. So then when you say, I made this incredible customer marketing video, or I wrote this incredible case study, there's that big question of, so what? And if you can go to your organization and you can go to your C-level executives at the end of the year and you can say, I have generated $1.3 million in revenue from my customer marketing assets, just assets alone. And you can do that with RO Innovation, which is a really great tool that helps sales teams. Or if you say, we have noticed we've had, 13 million clicks on our post from that one video style that we did. Can we start doing more of that and put our budget there? It will help your leadership team assign budget to you, and it will help grow your organization. So tracking is definitely important.
So at the end of the day, it's about assessing value proposition. So what? What is it bringing in?
Yeah, the so what question is so important. And I think that's what everybody's trying to prove right now with the layoffs and with everything. So what? Yeah. Why is my role important? Why is what I'm doing important to sales? Because at the end of the day, marketing is here to support sales. We're here to drive revenue, drive our brand voice, drive recognition so that they can sell easier. So if we throw some numbers at it and say, this is why we're important and this is the value that we're adding, it's a lot more beneficial to them to justify putting more budget towards marketing when usually marketing is the first to get their budgets cut.
Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say are some challenges that you've come across that is very common, and how can we handle them if we do come across them?
In terms of campaign tracking? Not using the right tools, definitely, and tracking in a million different areas. It's a great thing that, being in the customer marketing world, you're going to create things that live on internal portals. So utilized by the sales teams, they might be internally facing only. And then also on the higher profile side, you can be publishing things to, third-party sites. I've done a lot of work with Bloomberg or the Wall Street Journal, and you need to track to see how your customer engagements are doing there, or you're putting things on social. There are so many different places for customer marketing inclusion to live. So it's hard to track everything at once. So definitely having the right tools is helpful, but it is hard to track.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of tracking, one sec. What about the KPIs? What would you say? I mean, it's a very broad question because it depends on the campaign, but what would you say are the top 3 KPIs that you've noticed are really important?
Is for each company. When I was at Dell, the KPIs were pretty clear because it was Dell. You had the name recognition to it. Companies were writing in to say, I want to do a marketing campaign. So we were tracking and building KPIs on number of assets within each cohort. So we were segmenting customers into different buckets. And I would say okay, I'm going to build 3 high profile customer partnership videos, and I'm going to build 10 regional videos. So you had more numbers tied to them because it was an easier way to do it. Customers were asking to work with you. But then when you work into these smaller companies that might need a little bit more build, you start to track, engagement. You start to track revenue attribution. You start to see growth. One big thing that I'm doing right now, while I'm at Redis, is we haven't had anybody tracking the number of advocates, the number of customers that you can call on a daily basis and say, will you say something nice about our company? We don't know how many customers we have to say that, and that's a really bad thing. We brought on this really great girl at my last company where her job was just tracking, customer advocates and growing them quarter over quarter. And it was really helpful for the sales teams to say, in quarter 3, we had 1,000 advocates. Well, in quarter 4, we had 1,300. So we've grown and built the number of customers that you can call for your reference calls for prospects. And that's something, lower level organizations and customers marketing organizations that are trying to build, they should start there, because your happy customers are how you're going to drive sales, and they're going to be the cherry picking of which customers you want to engage for marketing initiatives. So it just varies from organization to organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. With campaigns, I mean, the obvious thing that's going on in the world right now is privacy, and we can talk about data privacy and ethics. Why do you think it is so important to consider data privacy in marketing, especially today?
So important. I have had so many customers call me and say, how did this person get my phone number? How did this person get my email? Are you selling my data? And it's really important to reassure your customers that their data privacy is, really specific to them. It is really specific to us. You want to make sure that your customer's best interest is always at the forefront of everything you're doing, and that you have really strict tools in place to protect that data. Because, cybersecurity is top of everybody's minds right now with hackers and people coming in to steal everybody's data for their own use. Making sure that reassuring your customers is really important. I can't stress it out enough. It should be on the forefront of everybody's, ethics, on like ethical training. Do not give out customer data. Make sure your customers know that they have privacy and they have, rights to pull out data at any time. It's crazy the amount of, people I've had reach out to me that say, hey, I work at so-and-so organization, and I'm trying to sell to X company, and they're one of your customers. Can you give me their cell phone number?
Wow.
It's so quick, and it happens almost every day. Reaching out on LinkedIn, friends calling me saying, hey, I know you work with this customer. I really need to sell them. Can you give me their contact information?
That's
crazy.
crazy.
A huge privacy breach. Yeah. So
that is crazy.
Yeah, making sure that you're protecting yourself and you're not giving in, and you're protecting your company by bringing on the right tools, and overall you're protecting your customers, because at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think as an analyst, I've seen customer data, and I've always wondered, how are we keeping this safe? This is too much data, too much information about someone. So again, I think, what do you think people should do? Like a strategy that they should implement to keep the data safe?
With any organization, that should be your company's priority. Bringing on, really great cybersecurity and observability tools that will pick up when there's a breach, and implementing the right trainings for organizations to make sure that we know the right tools for phishing attempts and that kind of stuff. But as marketers, and especially people who are sales facing, making sure that everything is buttoned up, You're not sending someone something that was meant for someone else that they could get their contact information from. You're not sharing personal data. You're not giving out personal data as favors. Just you wouldn't want your stuff being sent around. If somebody sent my cell phone number to someone else saying, I think we could try to call this girl, she works at Redis, see if we can get XYZ into the company, I would be so pissed. I wouldn't buy from them. And I'd be so mad finding out who gave them my personal data. So just being smart.
I don't even like it when my friends give my numbers to other friends. So no, this is a big no for me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It happened this week, and I had a vendor of mine give my number to another vendor that was looking to bring in a product that we had used previously in my last company, and I knew who had given out my cell phone number, but I was like, that is horrible. Do not do that. I can't imagine if I was a customer, and essentially I am a customer. They want me to be. Don't give out my personal information. So
just don't. Yeah. How do you think this has affected marketing strategies? Because that is one of the biggest conversations that's happening right now with GA4 and everything. So do you think obviously it's difficult, but what do you think about, how strategies are being built because of so many restrictions and constraints? In just building something, let's say a funnel for customer marketing, how would you consider data privacy as a factor? How big of a factor is that? And how is that affecting it?
It's getting more and more complicated, especially with, customers coming in and they're redlining a lot of their MSAs, saying we don't want publicity rights, we don't want our names on things, we have our own data to protect. And some examples I can think about right now are the company I'm at right now, Redis. We work a lot with really high profile banks. They don't want to be associated with any technology company, because if there is a breach in that company, there is an easy pathway to get into, get financial information from their company, and it's just a bridge pathway. So it's easier to just say, we don't want any advocacy, we don't want to be tied to any sort of company, big or small, because we want to protect our own customers' data, and we have to respect it because we get it and we feel the same way. So it's getting harder and harder as a customer marketer who wants to tell these stories and say, the top 5 banks in the world work with my company, and I can't tell these stories. I can't bring them up. I can't talk about them. We sign NDAs because it might be hurting their customer data in the long run, and that's something really important to them. So it's getting harder and harder. So we have to find different avenues. A good way to bypass it from a marketing standpoint is doing a lot of thought leadership. Less about how they're using the technology, more about broader ideas about AI, ideas about, women in tech, making the justification for having the execs talk to each other without it being about the technology is a good way to bypass it, but it is getting really, really hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess that's all I had for customer marketing, and that's all for part 1. Thank you so much. I really loved talking about customer marketing. There's a lot of questions that I had that got cleared up. With that, we can jump into part 2. Part 1 was amazing. I don't know what you guys thought about it, but I thought it was really good. I had a lot of questions that I wanted to ask, and I try to keep it to a very basic level because I didn't want to go in depth, because this podcast is all about making sure that we all understand things, and we're not trying to go too fast into deep concepts. But I still think she covered a lot that was very insightful to me as someone that loves customer marketing. I work as an analyst in customer analytics, so I love customer marketing. I've always looked up to people that work in customer marketing, and there are so many different aspects to marketing that also I will cover. I am still learning, and I'm so excited to see what you guys have to say about that. And I'm so excited to take you guys on that journey as well. But let's wait for part 2, because part 2 is going to be even more amazing. And I just know it. It's going to be amazing. So Stay tuned for part 2, and I will see you in part 2.
That's all for today. Hope you found it useful. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me at tmw@anushakaran.com. Follow me on LinkedIn to never miss my journey, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.